Hello and welcome back to the Scooter Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, as always, we got Jamison Maxwell, Ty Lee, and folks, it's that time of year again. The TV networks have released the first couple kickoff times for the season, and also as is tradition, all the OU fans are upset about one way or another, particularly the lack of 6 p.m. games. There's one, but there's not as many as people want. So, you know what? We're this happened like 5 days ago, but we're gonna break it down, talk about it, our thoughts on everything. So, just to let you know, in case you have missed it, UTEP is a 2:30 start on Fox. Kent State 6 p.m. That will be the ESPN Plus game. Nebraska gets a big nude again, which is a bummer, I think, for a lot of people. OU Texas, weirdly enough, is the one game that doesn't have a time, even though we all know it's going to be 11 a.m. And Iowa State has moved from Thursday to Saturday, October 29th. And that will be on either Fox or FS1. So a lot to talk about here, actually. I know it's not the meatiest topic in the world, but you know what? There's a lot of takes. We got a lot of takes about it. So I'm done preambling now. Jamison, your thoughts on the scheduling, and if you what's your biggest take from it all?
My biggest take and my biggest disappointment, I guess selfishly, is I was really looking forward to a Thursday game in Ames. I understand Ames is spooky on Thursdays, but this Iowa State team, if you were to have a Thursday night game versus, a spooky team like Iowa State, it'd probably be against this team who just lost Brock Purdy, who's been there for years now. And then obviously, you got a lot of turnover on the defensive end. You got a lot of turnover on the wide receiver and running back. And this is going to be a brand new team next year. That would have been a really fun game just to have something different, to go in on a Thursday night, watch that game during the week, and then kind of have a free weekend, almost a separate bye weekend for us to really enjoy the rest of college football as well.
Yeah, no, a free Saturday would have been nice. But also we get to avoid the spookiness. But again, that should be a less spooky game than what it was before. Ty, your biggest take on everything?
Yeah, I don't even necessarily know if I have a strictly OU take, but I'm excited. I think as a fan of college football, you have to be kind of disappointed in Texas, Alabama getting shafted with an 11 a.m. slot on September 10th. But as an OU fan, I think that's awesome because, like we talked about, that's our Kent State game. So it's a 6 p.m. kickoff for us, which means that you get that Bama-Texas game as your tailgate or pregame or whatever you're doing during the day. And then you can full in focus on that OU Kent State game if you're going, obviously, or if you're just a diehard OU fan that is wanting to have 100% focus on that game. So I think overall it's, that's a shame on Fox, but Fox is going to do what's in their best interest. But I think that worked out swimmingly for Oklahoma fans.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. That actually, you're right, is kind of the perfect time for it because, like you said, you get to watch it now. So that's a huge plus for sure, without a doubt. I wanted to kind of key in UTEP. The season opener kicks off at 2:30. It is on Fox, which is a plus because it's a national TV game. But UTEP, is that too hot? Is that too early? Is it going to be too hot out there, Jamison?
No. I mean, even if it is, like, who cares? 2:30 is the golden time. We're still fairly young, Bobby, and a lot of people are much older than us that listen to us. Like, we can withstand the heat. Put on some sunscreen. You might have to drink a couple water bottles, which is really hard on an OU Saturday. But come on, like, if you could say I'm sitting in 90-something degree heat, but I get a 2:30 slot for an OU game rather than an 11 a.m., I take that 10 times out of 10. Like we always said, 2:30 slots are great because you can actually sleep in, then tailgate, sufficiently. And then after the game, feel like you can go get dinner and then recharge your batteries and do whatever you want to do with your nightlife.
I'm with you. You don't want to get too greedy on it, like you said, we preached for a long time that 2:30 is that golden hour spot. So, unfortunately, it does run in with Oregon and Georgia at 2:30 as well that day. But you get the nightcap, which is, I believe, a pretty solid matchup. Notre Dame and Ohio State. So you get to watch the late game. That's pretty fun. Ty, your thoughts on the 2:30?
Look, it would not be I would not feel at home as an OU fan if you didn't have that one game at OU that was just brutal. One of those games where it is just absolutely, if you are coming in completely well rested, completely hydrated, completely sober, to sit on the student section or in the student section side of the stadium. What would that be? The east side of the stadium? Yeah, because the sun is setting off to the west. It's just a sporting event in and of itself, just a brutal experience to have that sun beating down on you. I know in the student section specifically, it's always right in your eyes as it sets. You can't see what's going on, and it's a miserable experience, but it's just part of the experience. I really feel like we would miss out if we didn't have that one game that was just the summer, the heat wave game that really, it's unfortunate. We don't want it to take out people, but the game where it's people are having issues in the stands and you got people getting carried out and they're running out of water and all that stuff. Obviously, we don't want that. That looks bad, on us, and we don't want anyone to deal with any medical issues. But it's kind of a rite of passage in my opinion. Maybe not a rite of passage, but it's part of the experience. It's the same as having that one OU game at home later on in the season where it starts out kind of warm and you don't want to carry extra stuff. And then by the end of the second quarter, you're freezing in the stands and everyone's trying to leave because they're not true fans and they're cold because they didn't bring the proper, clothing to the game. So I think it's part of it,
Yeah, the hot game is the annual Gomer Jones first aid center game. For sure. But last note before we get off of the scheduling discussion. Nebraska, big noon again. Are y'all upset about this at all? Obviously not the same amount of vitriol as last year, when it was hosted at home. Not the 50th anniversary of the game of the century. I personally am upset because, we're going to that game. I would have loved to not have to wake up and, have your game day kind of cut short, in terms of tailgating and all that. But y'all's takes on it. Jamison, your thought?
Yeah, it's always disappointing you have an 11 a.m. slot, but selfishly, whenever it's an away game, I'm like, okay, I can deal with it a little bit better because in Norman, it's like, obviously it's a whole event. You plan your whole day around this. But, 11 a.m. away games, even really, really big ones, I can wake up, roll out of bed, and just start OU football and then have a whole day in front of me. But it does kind of suck because I feel like, this is another game that should be getting a lot of national coverage. Hopefully, I wish, Nebraska was a better team, but 11 a.m. slot usually isn't the most nationally watched in terms of, first 2:30 and 7s because we're fighting against the Pacific Standard Time, people that are getting up at 9 o'clock to watch college football. So it's kind of a bummer on that end, but selfishly for me, I don't mind it. But if I was going to Lincoln, I'd be disappointed.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of the one that makes the most sense in a weird way. Like, of the 11 a.m. kickoffs, I get it because I don't know if it can beat, a prime non-conference type of game. Looking through here, I think the biggest one is, I guess, Miami, Texas A&M that day. That probably has to be it. But
those are huge fan bases, though, is an issue.
Yeah, it's just if Fox knows that they'll be able to just dominate that time slot. So I get where they're coming from. We literally had a discussion about it, this podcast, about how nice that 11 a.m. game is as fans not of that team. So it's a big sense.
I really think with this one, putting it in context of being an OU fan and of that experience, we get a game, 2 games back to back in Norman that are really good time. 2:30, the brutal heat game, then a 6 o'clock. That's where you see, where the adults and where the people that maybe have some growing up to do are when it comes to tailgating, because that one takes some discipline, to time it right and not go a little bit too hard. But then you get that 11 a.m. away game. But then the very next week, we're coming right back to Norman with another game at home. Obviously, time TBD on that one. But I think it's good. And I've said this before on the pod. I know you guys are not so much. But I actually rather enjoy the low-key get up, turn on College Game Day, watch some of the segments, but also some that I don't necessarily care about. It's great background to cook breakfast or get breakfast or whatever, and then have that roll right into our away game that I can watch. And then, by the time that's over, time to get lunch, and then just go about my day normally. I think it's a good sort of recovery and way to ease ourselves into the season, because as an OU fan, it's going to be a game that we care about because that traditional historical relevance and rivalry. But yeah, there was no way that this one was going to compete nationally, just because I don't, we don't want to start the trash talk already, but I think fairly objectively, Nebraska has not held up their end of the bargain in maintaining this game as a relevant national game. So
yeah, no, absolutely. This is definitely on Nebraska's end for sure. Well, that's enough of the scheduling talk. We're moving on to some basketball. Jamison, some news out of the portal. Portal Moser at it again. We took a couple L's, but are we doing better? Has the portal giveth back to old Porter Moser?
Yeah, like big time. I'm really proud of like how we're doing as of recently in the portal, because we are talking, the other day, I was thinking like OU is going to be kind of thin next year. Like we lost a lot of guys, and that's kind of what happens whenever you have Jordan Goldwire leave and Emoja Gibson go to Dayton. Like really? Okay. Or DePaul, excuse me, is DePaul. Like DePaul from OU. Wow. I mean, okay. But getting Grant Sherfield from Nevada is a big time guy. Like he is, one of the probably the most big time transfers at the combo guard in college basketball. The guy that like averaged like 17, 18-ish points a game, and Nevada will slot right into our starting guard position, which is already really thin, and will really provide a lot of offense for us. And then today we got a Kentucky transfer as well. Who's I think he's like 6'5", small forward. I'm looking up his name. But I was looking at his tape earlier, and he showed some promise out of high school. He's a 4-star guy, has some talent, just didn't break into the rotation at Kentucky. And definitely there's a spot there because Elijah Harkless leaving. So we've got plenty of room, and people are starting to flock to us. So it's honestly really, really good, because I was kind of getting worried for our team next year. Do you have the name of the UNC guy? I'm trying to find it.
UNC. I thought you said Kentucky there for a second.
Oh, Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky. Sorry, I was just looking at North Carolina.
We did actually have, I believe, an assistant coach get hired on by Kentucky. So
that's what it was. Kentucky, North Carolina are two. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I'm totally straight now. Yes.
Yeah. No.
KT Turner went to Kentucky, which kind of sucks because Calipari is poaching people. But you can't turn that down if Calipari is offering you to be on his staff, because it's not like a position that you're going to move up in the world. If you're, an assistant coach at Kentucky, it's most likely not going to be a Duke situation where they hire from within. But that gets you clout. It absolutely gets you clout whenever you're getting seen that much on the big stage. And Kentucky's going to continue to have TV games because they're going to continue to recruit well, and they're going to have guys that they're going to look for in the draft. And then every single time you see him sitting on the sideline and people mention his name, that's just going to gain him more clout. And if he wants a head coaching job in the future, this is an upward job for him. So that was really big time for him.
Yeah, and then you also had David Patrick, another assistant, leave to Sacramento State. So it's that coaching staff has gotten pilfered quick. So it
was Kerwin Walton. Kerwin Walton of North Carolina transferred. I'm gonna just set this straight because I screwed this up. It was Kerwin Walton from North Carolina transferred, but the Kentucky was the coach thing that happened today. Yeah, gotcha. I was watching Kerwin Walton's tape, and there's some good things. He's not going to be like a game changer for us, but anytime that you can get wing depth, which is extremely hard to get in college basketball. Or just basketball in general, you can never have too many wings.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that wing strength is very solid, especially at the college level. That's really, really rare to have a good stable of wings for sure. So yeah, I think that was pretty much talking basketball. Ty,
I completely botched it though.
It's all good. It's the off season.
Yeah, I don't have a lot about basketball. I did fall down like a weird YouTube rabbit hole the other day because I don't really follow basketball, about how Michael Jordan might be Jimmy Butler's dad.
Oh, no.
I don't know. The videos did not seem reputable whatsoever. but
You don't
one
say.
just came up. Well, one came up on my recommended. I didn't know. For all I know, this could be like public knowledge that everyone knows about. I don't know. So I was like, oh, well,
never
if
heard
everybody
of it.
knows about this, I need to click on watch this, conspiracy video, but it doesn't seem that convincing. Basically, it just resulted in them showing faces side by side and then being like, they both play in the NBA. So I don't know. Results inconclusive, I guess.
It sounds not only inconclusive, but probably just full of crap. But you never know. You never know. The internet never wrong. I've never been proven wrong by the internet. So, anyways, yeah, I think I was talking basketball. We also have a couple things to talk about. So, this is kind of like a really, really downtime for sports. NBA Finals wrapping up. Obviously, OU football is over like 90 days away. So we have a long way to go. Spring football's over. But look, there's some really cool. This is actually kind of a fun time for OU sports if you look at it. OU's golf team, just bowed out of the golf national championship today, unfortunately. But we got some really good stickball teams. Softball, as you know, absolutely been dominant so far in the postseason. Made their way to the Women's College World Series. They start Thursday against Northwestern. That's always fun to watch. Make sure to try to get out there if you can if you live in OKC. But also, our baseball team's pretty good. They won the Big 12 baseball tournament and kind of got screwed out of a regional. So there's a lot of fun OU sports to watch for sure. Even though we don't cover them a ton. We don't stay tuned to them a ton. We have a lot of life. We live a lot of life, so we're pretty busy. That was a really horrible way to put that. But Jamison, any excitement for softball, baseball, the like?
Yeah, I'll come in on baseball because I watched probably the first 6 innings of the game before. I mean, it was really out of hand pretty quick in that Texas game, the Big 12 championship. Cade Horton, let's cross over from football, a guy that we took as a bi-sport athlete. Man, he throws heat. And I know he had a Tommy John surgery not too long ago. He's looking good. He was throwing 98, 99, down the middle. And, man, he looked fresh. Like, at the beginning, I was a little bit worried. Texas hit a home run, like one of the best players in the nation. But then we just shut them down. We've got pretty dang good pitching, and our hitting gets hot. We're one of the more hot teams in the nation right now. And from what people are saying, like, they wouldn't be surprised at all, even though we didn't get a regional, that Florida should be on watch, that we could really come out of there.
Yeah, no, they're primed for a good run. Florida is, definitely one of the weaker national seeds. And I believe if we get
play
out
Liberty.
Yeah,
so.
it's Florida, Liberty, and one other team, I can't remember, Central Michigan. So that's pretty easy regional, I think, to get out of. And then I believe they'd be matched up with the Virginia Tech, the winner of the Blacksburg regional. So there's always a chance the Hokies could fall apart, and then OU hosts a super regional for the first time, which would not be bad. Packing those berms out, the couches would be wild out there for the super regional. Ty, what about you?
Yeah, I don't really follow it, but I love to go support in person. I absolutely recommend it to anyone that has the chance or is in the area. Super cool, just chill atmosphere supporting those sports. Well, not necessarily with softball. I know we're talking about baseball right now, but they have a great atmosphere of their own too. Yeah, love to see OU sports being successful, especially in sort of the lesser known things, or the things that obviously baseball's not lesser known, but things that you don't normally associate OU with.
Yeah, no, and softball is, let's talk about them for a bit. They've just, as I think a lot of people know, they've become an absolute juggernaut in just sports in general. So watching them kind of get to the Women's College World Series now, this is where it really escalates, where it really gets tough. So that's I think it'd be really fun. And Jamison, you and I can attest to it. It is quite a time.
I mean, it's this softball is like, it's now. Like, I think the next 10 days, like the heat of the Women's College World Series. So strap in, and people that just come out for this time of the year, which is a lot of time me, but I still pay attention throughout the year. It's come and watch the games, in OKC. It's way too easy. And then also, Jocelyn Allo, we've been hearing her name for a long time as a freshman, but the way she's played a career at OU, people are calling her the greatest softball player of all time, essentially right now. What people have been doing. There's an argument for it. And every single time you bring up GOAT, people are going to be, a little argumentative, especially for a player that's still playing. Let's not go down that timeline where we can be Skip Bayless and Shannon here, but it's true. If you want to come see greatness, see one of the best, if not the best college softball player to ever play, that's Jocelyn Allo and the way she's playing. You've got to come out and check it out in OKC if you've never gone to a softball game before.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, no doubt. It's really fun, and I'll say this: I think softball or women's college softball in a lot of ways can be a bit of a more fun product than college baseball because it moves faster. Yes, only normally 7 innings, I believe, and not only that, but everything's just kind of closer, smaller, so a lot more offense, a lot more energy than the men's game. Men's game's still fun, don't get me wrong, but that's softball. Especially with a packed Hall of Fame stadium in OKC, there's nothing like it. Even with the unfortunate walk to Riverwind, or not Riverwind.
That would be an unfortunate walk.
It feels like Riverwind. Remington Park, the walk from Remington Park all the way to that's tough. The heat's tough, but it's a really cool stadium, a really cool time, and I definitely encourage y'all to give that a shot if y'all had not, because you'll fall in love with that team. They're really fun. They're really fun for sure. Not just because they're good. They're just a fun team.
If I can give a pitch for softball, I know it is to some extent debatable on the softball side, but one of the cool things I think about college softball is I believe that for the most part, you're watching sort of the pinnacle of that sport. You're seeing, the best players, obviously, because that's the pipeline that they have to come through. But it's not as large of a sport when it comes to the good players, like say college football. So you're really seeing, super all-star games in terms of the best athletes and some would argue at sort of the peak time in their careers performing. So it's really just as a fan of athletics, it is something that is, I would say, sort of unique in the college athletics sphere, because a lot of the other, like men's sports, football and basketball, a lot of the times, obviously, people are having to come through those to get to their respective pro sports, but the talent is generally a little bit more dispersed than in softball, where the real big talents are really concentrated at these schools that you're going to be seeing playing in the tournaments. And it's not something like baseball necessarily where, the really, really good players, not to disparage any of the college players, but a lot of the really, really good players don't have to go the NCAA route to make it to the next level. So I think just on an athletics level, that is something to consider.
Of course, and it's competition at its highest level, and I know they do have a professional league, but it's really just 2 teams, so it can kind of feel a little bit more like the Harlem Globetrotters versus the Washington Generals, but they're both good. But this is the highest level of competition, bar none, in that sport. So I think that's really fun.
Yeah, a couple of things to note about softball before we end things out. People that are considering going to games, if we win on Thursday at 2:30, obviously Thursday at 2:30 is not the most opportune time for people that work. Saturday 3:00 game would be the winner of UCLA Texas, which UCLA is a perennial superpower in softball. And then if we play Texas, it's obviously playing Texas, which would be great. 3:00 on Saturday. That is going to be very sought after tickets. So keep that in the back of your mind early and think about that. But if we do end up losing to Northwestern, we'd have a Friday night game. So it's going to be either way. We got a primetime slot where people that work can get there on the week and go watch a game. It's a really cool environment. And it's close to home. You don't have to go all the way to Norman if you live in OKC. So highly suggest that. And then the other thing, Oklahoma State's on the other side of the bracket from OU, which is big time, absolutely big time for us because that's our only loss. And if you want to find any motivation with a chip on their shoulder with this team that OU has, I'd be scared. I'm already scared of this team if I'm an opponent of OU facing up against them. But if I'm OSU and I beat them, yeah, you have confidence because you beat them before, but I'm scared deep down because I know this is one of the best college softball teams of all time, and they've got a vendetta against me.
Well, not only that, but OSU then posted about, when they won the Big 12 tournament, which is where they dealt OU that loss, one of two. It was they posted something like our state, our conference, blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay, there's a way to be like we won the tournament without being like we own this state, we own this conference. They put up a championship number on the wall, even though it was just a tournament. So I don't know. They did a lot of talking after that one. So I gotta say, you never want to make your own bulletin board material, especially when you're dealing with OU softball, who is truly one of the powerhouse teams in the country right now across any sport. So, yeah, all right. I think
it's gonna be good.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to 3 o'clock on Saturday. I'm not trying to say we're going to beat Northwestern, but I am penciling that into my Saturday plans.
Yeah, and I mean, hell, last year I think OU lost to James Madison really early, and that sent them down the losers bracket, had to crawl their way up. So really, anything can happen in this sport. But I'm just saying, circle that Saturday game because that's gonna be fun. UCLA is like kind of the old guard of softball, and then like you said, Texas is Texas. We don't even need to say much about that. So, yeah. Anyways, well, folks, this has been the Scooter Pod. Ty Jamison, thank you so much for coming on. Always a pleasure. So, yeah, the off season, we'll have more of these off season-y shows. So, everyone's laughing at me right now. I'm just going to end the pod. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Boomer Sooner. Beat Northwestern. Beat whoever. Liberty. Oh, God, Liberty.
Liberty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Liberty's trash. So, all right. Bye.